Welcome to the Blue Day podcast, and for Chelsea fans everywhere, every day is a blue day. This is going to be a long one, folks, today, so sit back, relax and enjoy. I am your host, a man with the face for podcasting, Keith Lawrence. On today's show, we will review the last two Chelsea games that have happened this week. We'll be discussing Chelsea transfer news, ins and outs, plus the rumours leading up to the transfer deadline day, talking about the Uefa Champions League Draw, and finally we have a huge announcement that will be made at the end of the show. So please stay tuned, because every true Chelsea fan will want to hear this one. But to join me today is somebody who I consider to be Mr. Power of Positivity. He is also the Londoner, living it large up north, especially in them pubs with the cheap beer. It's Warren. Warren, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Keith. How are you this morning? Like you said, big smile on your face. I think we're all feeling, I think everyone's feeling a bit more positive this morning.
What a difference a win makes.
What a difference a win and a performance and a clean sheet makes.
It doesn't matter what the weather is today. It could be shit, but I'm in a great mood. Yeah. I'm in a fabulous mood today.
It's very rare that last season, it was very rare. We had a few occasions at Stamford Bridge, and we had a few occasions in the Champions League, actually, away to Ajax, away to Lille as well, where we scored, we played, the performance was good, and we kept the clean sheet. And apart from the games that I mentioned there was Tottenham as well. Where we won away, played really well, clean sheet. But it's probably only the 7th or 8th time under Frank that it all came together and the performance was there, the clean sheet was there and the result was there. We've always sort of had 1 or 2 out of the 3, but yesterday was, and it wasn't the complete performance for reasons that we'll discuss more going into the podcast. But yeah.
Yes, we'll discuss about the Palace game later. Yeah. But I do agree with you that overall, and even, when we will touch bases on the Tottenham game very, very shortly, but the performances are getting there.
Yeah.
Against
Tottenham, it was kind of 2 out of the 3.
Yes.
Out of the performance, the clean sheet, the result, it was kind of, it was kind of 1.5 out of the 3 almost.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let's touch bases with the Spurs game first. And I know, many people will probably have forgotten about it and go, meh, it's League Cup or whatever. But I just want to sort of get your take on this, Warren. I've spoken to a few Tottenham fans since the game, and they were saying that Frank Lampard, this is going to be the season, he's going to struggle, blah, 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 and all that shite. But the overall consensus of the Spurs fans, especially from what I've heard on the radio and TV, this was their highlight of the season. They were treating this like this was their cup final, beating Chelsea. And it weren't even the quarterfinals.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, we all know about Tottenham's small club mentality. There's videos on the YouTube of them. And I can understand that getting into the Europa League was their target and they achieved their target and they should be pleased with their target. But as a team that was supposedly meant to be challenging for titles and stuff, the way that they celebrate that shows the mentality around their club. And it was a big result for them, because it would have been a big result for us if we won. I think it would have, it's always a big result to beat Tottenham or for Tottenham to beat Chelsea. So it is a big result, but it just shows their mentality. And, if Tottenham, the reason that Tottenham fans think that Frank's going to struggle this season and be under a lot of pressure is because that's what they expect, because that's what they watch every week. They watch a team either just completely fail or get to the point of success and then fail, or just sort of blend into mediocrity and fail. It doesn't really matter what they do, they just fail, so they don't expect anything more. As a Chelsea fan, I expect a lot more, and I've been treated to a lot more, so I suppose that's where the mentality is different. So fuck Tottenham.
Fuck Tottenham indeed. The one thing that I did
First
sort of
rant
notice...
on Sunday morning, I feel like the world's a better place.
It's not even 9:30 either.
No.
The one thing I did notice while watching the game on Tuesday night, and I was comparing it to Spurs from a few years ago under Pochettino, I believe they've gone backwards since Poch has left.
I don't know if they've gone backwards or so much as they've stood still where they were and everybody else has improved around them.
Possibly.
I think that's more. I think Mourinho is doing as good a job at Tottenham as anybody else could at the minute.
True. My thoughts on the 11, just quickly again, because we're sort of just briefly glossing this over. I'm surprised Tammy didn't start, but, and these were my notes before the game, Frank probably had Palace in mind for Tammy to start, which, we'll talk about later, definitely happened. Hudson-Odoi deserved his start on Tuesday. And to see Kovacic and Jorginho in midfield, I thought would be interesting to see how they played together. Frank at the helm, how their midfield dynamics would work, with the defence the way it is and with the attack different from last season. So those were my thoughts pre-game. The first half, beautiful strike by Timo Werner.
Yeah.
However, when he's looking to switch to play, Timo, which I find in the last couple of games this has happened, all of his passes have gone astray. Whether or not that's Timo's game, I don't know. I remember sort of seeing Timo a lot at IB Leipzig. He wasn't that particular player. I thought he could have supported Giroud a bit more on the attacking sense, because there was a lot of times Giroud was isolated when Spurs had the ball and Giroud was trying to press. Normally, with Werner being the striker, you'd expect him to support the press, but he didn't do that as much. But the one, and I have got this underlined many, many times, the defending throughout the game, I thought was very, very good.
Well, until the goal.
Until the goal, which I will talk about. And I believe there was one particular reason why the defence fucked up for that goal. But defending while Ben Chilwell was on the pitch was brilliant.
Yeah.
And it looked solid.
Yeah.
What the one criticism I did have, well, the main criticism, apart from a particular left-back that came on, was when I want Hudson-Odoi on the ball, I want him to run past the player. Not keep passing it back or, trying to switch the play at every opportunity. He has got pace to burn, run at the Tottenham defence, because I don't think the Spurs defence would have caught him, used the pace that God gave him to get past the player and get balls in for Giroud and Timo to attack.
I know what you mean, and we saw it against West Brom, kind of. I think what he does is he tries to constantly come short and keep coming short and keep passing it back, and like you're saying, passing it back to the full-backs and then back into central midfield and spreading the ball, switching the ball and spreading it wide and stuff. I think he does that to a certain point to draw the defence out so that there's the space in behind them, because Tottenham were playing quite deep and we was pressing Tottenham quite high, so it was quite difficult. I do agree there was occasions where I think I think for the first time since under Sarri, at the end towards under Sarri when he got his injury, I think for the first time since then his confidence is really coming back. I think his confidence is really, really coming back. I think Frank's made a real signal of intent to him by playing him and starting him. So it's been quite a long journey for him to get back into the starting lineup in the Premier League. So I think his confidence is really starting to come back, and I think we're going to start seeing him, skinning players around the outside an awful lot more. And, that box of tricks that he's got that's unbelievable is going to start coming out more and more. I think that we're going to start really seeing the best of Callum now. I think he's really, it seems like he's almost turned a corner. I know he had a good chance against Tottenham that he blazed over the bar, but he looks sharp. And I think with Timo and what you say about him and it not maybe being in his locker about, the range of passing and stuff, maybe it's not, but that's not why he's in the team. He's in the team to run with the ball and get in behind and run at defenders. And there was a few times against Tottenham that you could see the way that he was stretching the game and opening space up. I was a little bit surprised that Jorginho and Kovacic started. I was surprised that he played Kante and Jorginho against Brighton and then not Kante against Tottenham. I was quite surprised with that. But then it's because everything's all out of order with the lack of pre-season and the rearranged restart and everything. Everybody's pre-season and rehab for the start of the season and everything is all out of sync with itself.
Well, I can understand Kante not being in the starting 11 and, looking to play the full 90 minutes because, bearing in mind Kante didn't play a lot last season because of injuries.
Yeah.
Probably Frank wanted to maybe rest him a little bit just to sort of see how the game would develop later on.
Yeah.
But I thought the timing that Kante came on was spot on, and I thought Kante made a difference when he came on.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's something that was something that was in my notes that, let's talk about, we've mentioned there the starting lineup and a few individual players. Let's just mention that we played very, very well for the first hour, 65 minutes. We played extremely well. We was organised. We was disciplined. We created chances. Tottenham couldn't get hold of the ball. We looked solid enough from corners. Mendy had one flap at one. Mourinho changed it up tactically after about an hour or so, and he showed a little bit of experience and a little bit of class with how he changed things subtly. Just starting positions for one or two of their players, and they was pressing a lot higher. I think he got into them quite a lot at half time. I think Dyer going off for a cheeky line helped. But they turned the corner of the second half, so to speak, Tottenham, and they ended up playing quite well. And then obviously Chilwell wasn't ready for the 90 minutes. Emerson come on and, made a poor mistake at the back post, letting Lamella in behind it. Like that's Alonso levels of mistake. That was really poor, that was. But we was really good. We did, for an hour, we was the much better team, and it was the first time under Frank that from the start his teams really, you could see where he was going with it, and you could see that once this player was in there or that player was in there, and it's not just me saying, oh, when these 4 or 5, 6 players come back, you watch and see how we play. We actually played like that for large periods of the game, and we still didn't have all of the personnel back. So I was disappointed. Obviously, I was gutted to lose against Tottenham. Of course I was. I was absolutely gutted. Mason Mount was really unlucky with his penalty. He's 3 inches away from that being considered the perfect penalty. He played really, really well again. Will need he was rested this week because they had no more socks in his size. He was literally, I'm not even joking, they just didn't have to kick for him. They just couldn't afford it. Yeah, it was an excellent performance. We ran out of legs a little bit. We lost our shape a little bit when Chilwell went off. Kante did make a difference breaking up the play. I think that was a wise substitution from Lampard, and I think it also showed how seriously he was taking the game. And it wasn't just we was playing some of our top players for fitness in the Carabao Cup and using it as a pre-season. He wanted to win to the point that Kante kind of has had his pre-season now and could have done with a rest before the weekend, so he was fully fit. But he brought him on to make the difference to win the game. And I think that was a real signal of intent from Lampard, and playing Mendy rather than Caballero, and playing Werner and Havertz and blah blah blah, and all these other players, Jorginho and Kovacic in the midfield and Mount again. I think it showed that he really, really wanted to stay in the competition. He really, really wanted to beat Tottenham, as we all did. But that being said, now that we're out of it, it could end up being a blessing in disguise. Looking back at this moment, at the end of the season, we might say them 3 or 4 games that we didn't play over Christmas in the Carabao Cup, as it will be after that long Champions League run, could end up being pivotal in the longer term.
I agree with you to a point that it could be a blessing in disguise, especially with, less games, more training for Frank to gel his players, considering we haven't had a proper pre-season like every other team.
Yeah.
I am disappointed to go out to Tottenham because I thought the Spurs game was there for the taking. However, I cannot fault the Spurs. Excuse me, I nearly swore. I cannot fault the Chelsea team. I cannot fault, any of the players apart from Emerson, who I thought really fucked up.
Yeah.
Really massively fucked up for the goal.
It's a poor mistake. That mistake, it might not be as obvious initially to everybody, but that mistake is as bad as the Alonso or the Thiago Silva one or the whole defensive unit against West Brom.
Well, the one that sprung to mind with Emerson's mistake it was very similar to his mistake for the Arsenal goal when we played them in December, when Aubameyang scored. When Emerson done the mistake, it was very, very similar because he's the last man in that line of defence, and the ball's coming over his head, and his overall positioning was shit. It was shit back in December, and it was shit on Tuesday. So,
that's the thing. With Emerson seems to let people go from crosses, which I know Alonso's been guilty of. Alonso's more guilty if the ball's coming down the left-hand side, so he's obviously on the opposite side to the pitch. Let's say that, against Tottenham, Lucas Moura was running down the left-hand side. What Alonso, I think, has a habit of doing is getting sucked in and leaving too much space behind him, which always gives people the run on him. And I think that's kind of his problem, whereas Emerson is one of them people who just thinks, oh, well, there's 4 people in between me and the cross. It's definitely not going to come this far. I'm going to stand out here and be ready to receive the ball. I think that's what Emerson does quite a lot. And I think you've just noted it there. And I don't think that's the only time that it's happened and it's cost us goals, let alone it be the only time it's happened and, chances have been created against us. It seems to happen all the time with him. And I think that's why Frank just doesn't see it working with Emerson at all. I'm very surprised he's still at the club.
I'm surprised he's still at the club, whether or not...
I don't know whether Frank's expecting an academy player to come through soon or something, but I'm not sure.
Emerson reminds me of a lot of the players that we've had in the past that have then gone to other leagues and done okay. Yeah, he would be so suited in Serie A. He would probably be one of the best left backs in that league. But in this league, his mistakes do get found out. His overall game gets found out. But as you say, I'm surprised he's still at the club. However, like I said before, and I want to end this on a positive. Yes, we're at the League Cup, but I look at it as it's not the end of the world. It only feels like that because it was Tottenham. Yeah. If it was against, Man City, I could probably take it. If it was against Newcastle, I could probably take it. But because it's Tottenham, it is still a bit sore. But I will want to end this on a positive because I'm in a fucking great mood. The whole team, as a unit, played very, very well. The pressing, the Spurs players in the first half was exceptional. Werner's strike, very, very good. Will not be the last time we say that on the podcast this season. So I want to take that into the positivity. I want to take that as a positive and I want to, really put it into Chelsea fans' minds that Frank is trying to build something, because the amount of negativity that I heard on Tuesday night going into Wednesday morning, oh, Frank should go out. Oh, yeah, Mason Mount's a wanker.
Yeah, Mason Mount took a lot of stick. I was told that, he's too much of a baby and he's too much of a little wuss essentially and blah, blah, and all the rest of it. And it was one of them things that I had to let go over my head because I felt that, I understand that people have a different opinion on different games of certain players, but to call out Mason Mount, who's missed 2 games since Frank Lampard came into the club, 2. He's only missed 2 games since Frank Lampard came into the club. Listen, you're not around world-class players and managers that were the best midfielders in the game at their time, and you're not around all these players and around a club full of players behind the scenes like Cech and Morris and Cole and Drogba and etc., 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 etc. You don't play in 60 or 70 games almost in a row with all them players around you and be shit without somebody noticing. Right? So I just want to nip that one about Mason Mount in the bud straight away. You know who you are. You do listen to the podcast and you are chatting shit. I think the most important thing to take out the Tottenham game, last 25-30 minutes, Tottenham put us under a lot of pressure. Last season we would have buckled and let them create 7, 8, 9, 10 chances. They created 2, maybe 3, the 2 that were half chances and then the goal. Last season we would have conceded a lot more chances and we would have buckled under the pressure. And apart from that one mistake from Emerson, we didn't. And that was a massive plus as well.
And I will want to end this on a positive before we talk about the Palace game. Mendy's debut, solid.
Apart from the one flap.
But I'm not being funny.
And I only mentioned that.
It was his debut. I will let him off for one flap.
Absolutely.
Have you seen the amount of flaps?
Absolutely will I. Absolutely so will I. But the only reason that I mention the flap is just to provide a little bit of consistency, because we analysed and studied and criticised every single move that Kepa made unless it was perfect. So I think it's only fair to bring a certain amount of consistency in for the next goalkeeper as well, like we did with Caballero, just to say that he did have a bit of a flap at one, but he looked calm, and that just exuded out to the defence. And it was an experienced defence as well.
You're talking about flapping. Have you seen Jermaine Pickford recently? He's flapping more than a one-winged pigeon.
Well, I tell you who's even worse is the Everton goalkeeper, Jordan Pickford. He's even worse than Jermaine Pickford. He's definitely worse. I watched Match of the Day, right? And there's this geezer, Jordan Pickford, right? Little ginger geezer from the North East, right? And he kind of looks like the geezer out of This Is England. You know, the young lad in it? The one with the flares and all that. The one they sort of like, all the skinheads take on and that. Anyway, he looks like him. But yeah, Jordan Pickford, Everton. Yeah, he's having a shopper. Yeah. Who's Jermaine Pickford? Who does he play for? I'll let you have that one, right?
You bastard.
Because you never get names wrong. You're always spot on with your facts and your fact check, and you're always spot on. It's very rare that I have the opportunity that you said that on air, and that is staying in the show as well. Right?
There is a reason why I've got Jermaine in my head. I will explain later.
Jermaine penis.
I know. I will explain later. Let's talk about the Palace game. My notes, to be perfectly honest, Warren, there's not that many. Because really, in all honesty, I thought it was the perfect game.
Well, I mean, I only made 4 pages of notes.
Only the 4 pages.
My first note that I wrote after the match, so to speak, was Zuma excellent, Silva settling in, Chilwell man of the match, Jorginho is class. They were my notes straight after the match. But with regards to the Palace match, Crystal Palace, we all know what Crystal Palace are. They are a solid defensive unit who are very, very organised. They know their jobs. They're well drilled. They're consistent. And they have pace on the attack. Right? In Will Zaha and AZ and Ayew and Townsend, they've got an attack that is potentially like as good as Leicester's that won the league. Right? In terms of, like, I know that was a one-off season, but, you know, Vardy and Mahrez, but you could argue that Crystal Palace could be as potent as a Leicester. Right, so we all know Crystal Palace's strengths. But Crystal Palace's main strength is that they don't concede a lot of goals. And that they stay very, very tight at the back. And they're always a threat going forward. Crystal Palace against us yesterday. And I do bear in mind that it is only Crystal Palace. But it doesn't mean that what I've said isn't true. Crystal Palace give Arsenal, Man City, Tottenham, Liverpool, Man United, Chelsea. They always give them a hard game. And it's usually only one goal that settles it. I can't remember the last time a so-called top team demolished Crystal Palace like that. I don't remember the last time it happened. And we had to be so patient and we had to be so aware of their threat going forward that was zero with how well we played, apart from one Mendy save that was like a deflected cross for Ayew in the second half.
Yes.
But yeah, it was, I wouldn't say that it was perfect because it wasn't necessarily perfect to the eye. But in terms of getting everything right from the very back to the very front and doing it for 90 plus minutes, I agree. It was perfect, so to speak. You know, it was, like I said, the patience of the performance is what impressed me the most, because it would have been very easy to panic. Not the best start to the season. Apparently Frank's under pressure. Apparently all these players are under pressure. Apparently nobody's good enough and all the rest of it. All this so-called pressure that's coming from so-called football people and so-called Chelsea fans and stuff. It would have been easy to panic. And they didn't. They just kept doing their thing, plugging away, understanding that the chances would come. Chilwell is showing that he can play the Alonso role going forward as well as Alonso, which is very, very important, because in replacing Alonso and getting a better defensive player, the worry was that we'd lose it going forward, because Alonso is astonishing going forward. We've said many times before, he's the top goal scoring defender since he come to the Premier League. So Chilwell showed that he could do that as well as his defensive responsibilities. So yeah, really lovely goal from him. Kurt Zouma, what a header. You know, and he was excellent throughout as well. He won like a lot of headers and he was calm on the ball and his positioning, and he took the defence up. There was a few occasions that he was taking Thiago Silva up the pitch with him to put high pressure up the pitch and stuff. He was really excellent, really good goal. And then Jorginho, even without his penalties, his little flippity flop, which is always risky. You know, it's up to him what he does, but it's always risky. But he was just class yesterday, man. Like that ball to Tammy in the first half, and when Tammy took it down and sort of like brought it up into his belly, and then he ended up going out for a goal kick. But Jorginho, just throughout the game, the positions that he took up, the way that he dragged Palace players around to create space for Chilwell and Azpilicueta in the fullback positions, the way that he dragged Townsend inside of him and Zaha inside of him when we had the ball deep and stuff. It was just, that was my main thoughts on the game, really. I think perfect is a huge word, which is why I hesitate to use it, but it was a very, very good performance. And it was exactly what I've been telling everybody is going to happen. I said that once Werner and Havertz and other people have settled into the team, and once we've got a centre forward up there, and once Chilwell comes into the team and Silva's played a couple of games, and when we've signed a new goalkeeper, I know there was a lot to expect, but I said once all them things have happened and everything's in place, it will come, the quiet before the storm. I said I thought we'd win the game 5-0 and it was 4-0. Because I knew this was coming. And unfortunately, Crystal Palace felt the wrath of it yesterday. And I think that this is a big stepping stone for us going forward. But what did you think of the game, Keith? Obviously, you was just as excited and just as positive as me. But how did you view the game? Other than perfect, obviously.
Well, I mean, the starting 11, I loved it.
Yeah.
It was the first time.
Sorry, even without Pulisic as well.
It was the first time Zuma and Silva played together, and they looked solid. Yes, I know it was Palace. It's not Liverpool. It's not Bayern. But you've got to start somewhere.
But Crystal Palace, who score goals.
Yes, you have to start somewhere.
Especially away.
Well, look what happened to Man United.
Correct. Look at Crystal Palace have had I think Crystal Palace have had a top 10 away record for like 4 consecutive seasons or something.
Yes. Again, Kante was brilliant.
Yeah.
My first half notes sort of conclude with, some lovely patterns of play going forward, but there was no seek and destroy attitude. Now, what I mean by that is that there was no clinical threat. You had the one chance by Werner.
Yeah.
That, Guaita saved quite comfortably, but really that was it. There was no...
They mentioned a few times that when there was opportunities to cross the ball, there was only one player in the box. And I think sometimes that affects how Callum Hudson-Odoi plays. Because Callum Hudson-Odoi may think, I can skin this player, I can turn this player inside out right now, but I'm going to get to the byline and Tammy's being marked by 3 centre-backs.
Mm.
So maybe that affects Callum's decision-making on when he's going to try and beat the player. Sorry to cut you in there, Keith.
No, listen.
That's like an important tactical thing that it's just come to me there that he was mentioning about Callum Hudson-Odoi and not beating players when clearly he's got the talent to do so. They mentioned it on Match of the Day and Sky Sports yesterday that there was a good few times that Chelsea had opportunities to get the ball in the box, but Tammy was being marked by Kurate, Sacco and, MacArthur or something, It was like, Sorry, carry on, Keith.
No, by all means. There was moments in the second half that Hudson-Odoi did have 1v1 opportunities with the young left back.
Led to the first goal, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he done very, very well from it. So more of that, Callum, please. That would be fantastic. I thought every single player played brilliantly. Jorginho, as you said, again, at the moment, looked very, very good. We're going to talk about him later when it comes to the transfers.
People, please, get onto BBC iPlayer or whatever platform you want to watch it on and just watch a Match of the Day or a highlight, a 10-15 minute real highlight of the game. And just watch the positions that Jorginho picks up, and just watch it from a Jorginho perspective. Doesn't matter what's going on. Just watch Jorginho all the time. Because for anyone that doesn't appreciate his class, I think it's because the stuff that he does is so unnoticed. If you just watch him in that Palace game for 15 minutes, and even in the Palace game last season when he came on for the last 20 minutes and steadied the ship, that's why Chelsea and Man City and other teams were fighting over a 50-60 million pound centre midfielder.
I've got 3 more notes and then that's it, basically, because like I said before, there's not much else I could have wrote about because the performance was just outstanding. But I think you'll probably have something to say on this. In regards to the fourth goal, what happened beforehand, I don't want to talk about Tammy too much because, to be honest, I can understand why he had the ump. I don't have a problem with that. But Cesar Azpilicueta, one of my favourite players of all time as a Chelsea player, and I think I mentioned before on the podcast, if I have, then check the archives, but what a top man. And he was the captain that led by fucking example. He was the guy who put everything, all the doubts to rest about, there could be dissension in the ranks, Tammy wants his goal, and all that crap that could have happened. Cesar just went up to Tammy and said, no, we have a designated penalty taker. You have to step aside. Jorginho's taking it. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that everything you said there is absolutely true. I think that it can't go unnoticed. The thing is, right, you don't appreciate, 9 times out of 10, you would never appreciate what a fantastic job Azpilicueta did until he did not do it, if that makes sense. So when he doesn't take control of that situation and it blows up and everyone has a massive row and it has a massive cloud hanging over the game, that's what makes it's a bit like Jorginho doing things that are almost unnoticed, that are so important that if he didn't do them, everything would explode around it. So I think that you've made that point really, really well. I think, Tammy did have the ump. I think he had a right to go up and ask for the penalty.
Agreed.
Right, I think he had a right to go up there and go, oh, come on, let me get my first home goal of the season, man. Come on, like, I've worked really hard today. I've missed a big chance because he did miss. The header was, he should have scored that. He was not under a lot of pressure. He's 10 yards out from goal, 8 yards out even, whatever. He should probably score that. Well, no, not probably. He should score that. And that's not me being negative. I think that's just a fair. I think Tammy would say that himself, to be honest with you. So I think that there's a way he could have approached it. He almost could have come up with a big charming smile on his face, being all young and everything, and just being like, oh, come on, Georgie, let me take it. Come on, I've worked really hard today. I need a goal. Come on, you've had one already. Come on. I think he could have approached it a bit different. But yeah, Dave come over, nipped it all in the bud. Tammy wasn't happy, but Tammy went and congratulated Jorginho straight away. There's been interviews since where Frank Lampard just said, yeah, that's why the captain's there. Georgie's our penalty taker. That's the way it is. Tammy's taking it on the chin and Tammy will come back stronger. Like, there's no issue. There is no issue there whatsoever. I mean, I tell you how little of an issue I saw with that situation and the interviews after, that I forgot that it happened until you mentioned it. Even though I actually recorded my reaction and commented on it at the time, which I've put up on the YouTube channel. Quite a few people have actually viewed them, which is always almost a bit cringeworthy, thinking about people watching me react to goals, because I know I go a bit over the top. But I remember commenting on it at the time, like, yeah, fair enough. Dave's come over and sorted it out. Sweet, move on. I don't even think that they'll mention it. I think that now that Dave's handled the situation, I think that Frank might say to Tammy, everything all right? And Tammy will go, yeah, sweet, yeah, don't worry about it. And they'll move on, and they won't even mention it come tomorrow morning when they turn up to training. I bet they don't even mention it.
You're probably right. Yeah. You're probably right.
Tammy's already scored goals this season. Tammy will score more goals this season, Who's to say that the next time that we're 3-0 up, Georgie might just go, yeah, Tam, go on, put one away. Or the next time that Tammy's on a hat-trick, Jorginho might let him take it, and then they'll have a good laugh about it, and they'll be like, yeah, do you remember that? Fucking hell, yeah, Jesus. Like, do you know what I mean? So, no, I haven't got no issue with it. I don't think anyone else has got a particular issue with it. I think, like we both sort of agreed and touched upon there, Tammy's got a right to go up there and sort of ask him for it, because he's the centre forward and everything. But then if he gives it to Tammy, why doesn't he give it to Timo? And if he gives it to Timo, why doesn't he give it to Havertz for his first Premier League goal? And why doesn't he give it to Giroud for his first Premier League goal? So that's why you can't let Tammy take the penalty in that situation, unless he is on a hat-trick or something,
And there are team rules. There is a penalty taker for a reason. Tammy wasn't happy with it,
but I don't care if he's happy with it. I want him to accept it and crack on. He accepted it and cracked on.
Absolutely. I just want to touch on one thing. Although he doesn't play for Chelsea, I thought his performance, or lack of performance, showed. Wilfried Zaha, who, if you remember, Warren, last year when the transfer ban was finished and we played Palace last November at home, there was obviously rumours about Wilfried Zaha being linked to us, and he didn't have a good game yesterday. And in my opinion, not just based on these two performances in general, but I think more of a collective, he is one of the most overrated footballers in the league.
Well, the reason I can't disagree with you, as much as I would like to disagree with you, the reason I can't is because he's never produced it at a consistent level, right? Now, there's a few arguments to say that he's never had necessarily the best teammates around him, which I don't think is the case anymore. I think there's a good manager there. I think there's good players around him. Then I think a lot of it comes down to his own personal motivation. I think it's obvious that he's got a bucket load of ability, but he just doesn't want to work that hard. He wants to just be the luxury player who kind of works a little bit less hard than everybody else, and everything's kind of built around him because he's got used to that at Palace. I think that a team like Crystal Palace is perfect for someone like Will Zaha, because I don't think he ever would play for a top club, because I don't think he's motivated to. So if he could just concentrate on playing for Crystal Palace, he would be a top class player for Crystal Palace, and everybody would say, why didn't he make a bigger move, kind of thing. But, you know, he would build his own little dynasty down at Crystal Palace. And there's worse clubs to do it for, man. Crystal Palace is a fantastic club. So, every single time Palace looked like they could maybe make a counter-attack, we put in a really clever little foul. And once a player had put in 2 or 3 of them, somebody else went and put in 2 or 3 of them. And we stifled Palace really, really well. And we stopped Zaha getting on the ball. As Pediqueta showed his experience. Thiago Silva, that was obviously on the right-hand side of defence, was always in the right position to stop Will from receiving the ball. That was really important. Jorginho, again, if you look at the amount of times that McCarthy or one of the centre-backs or the left-back of Crystal Palace pick up the ball, and the first thing they do is look for Wilf, and Jorginho will just make a couple of steps left or right just to cut the angle of the pass off so they can't get it into him. And that's what I mean about just watching Jorginho and just watching what only he does, because he does it so brilliantly. He does it better than Kante. Kante can recover a lot better, and his pace is better, and his legs are better, and things like that, so he can like intercept the ball. Jorginho doesn't intercept the ball that much because they never try and pass through him because he positions himself too well, and he stifles the counter-attack better than, in that sense, he stifles the counter-attack better than any other player in the Premier League, I think. So I think we played Zaha out the game. Like, we certainly played to our own strengths and forced Palace into, well, Roy Hodgson said mistakes. I don't know about mistakes, really. I thought they was good goals in their own right, all of them, really.
I think with the mistakes that people have referred to that Palace did, I think it was more with the penalty decisions, you know, rather than...
I'm not sure.
Overall...
I'm not sure that the first penalty was a penalty.
Okay. I disagree, but we have to agree to disagree on that one. I thought I thought both were solid penalties, in my opinion.
The second one is unquestionable. And the first one, once it's been given, it's hard to argue with it, sort of thing, either way. But I think the first one was very harsh, shall we say. Even if it was a penalty, it was a harsh decision, even if it was the correct one. The second penalty was absolutely a penalty. Like, there's no question about that. Lovely footwork from Havertz. Quick feet. There was a few times he showed his really quick feet yesterday. There was a few times Palace players thought that they'd intercepted the ball off of him, and he'd get his leg, and he'd get his leg through their legs to touch the ball, but not just to touch the ball, but to actually control it into his path so that he could carry on running with it. There was a few little moments, and I was like, oh, he's got some footwork, that boy, I tell ya.
One final point I want to mention before we move on from the Palace game and on to the transfers is something that I picked up and something that a lot of people picked up afterwards that mentioned to me about if I would like to mention it on the podcast. I said, absolutely. Firstly, I would like to mention that a few weeks ago I referred to Jermaine Genus as Jermaine Penis a couple of weeks ago, and that unfortunately caused a bit of a stir with some people, and I would like to apologise for that. This is the first apology of the Blue Day podcast that I would like to make for referencing Jermaine Genus as Jermaine Penis. It's very primary school-esque material, really. However, I have a new name for Jermaine Genus. Warren, would you like to hear it?
Yeah, Keith, we're going to have to edit this and restart this because I didn't know you was going to say this. I don't know that we should apologise for saying Jermaine Penis.
No. I will, on behalf of the Blue Day podcast, apologise because like I said, it is very primary school-esque. But his new name, Warren, Jermaine Genus, is the king penis of punditry. And the reason why I say that...
What's different about that to Jermaine Penis?
Because, referring his surname as Penis, it's very primary school-ish. But I think that with Jermaine's hard work and his intelligence as a pundit, he deserves a title.
Right,
rather than just a name.
We can edit this out. Restart the apology then. Fair enough. Sorry, Keith. We can obviously you can just cut this whole...
I feel that he deserves a title. So that's why, from now on this Blue Day podcast, and even on the YouTube channel, on Facebook and Instagram, he will be forever known as Jermaine Genus, the king penis of punditry. And the reason why he has deserved this accolade, Warren, is because he made one of the most stupidest comments a co-commentator has ever said before. We were 4-0 up.
What was this? What broadcast? What was this?
This was on BT Sport. For those of you that probably don't have BT Sport or whatever, Jermaine Genus was the co-commentator of the game.
Yeah.
And he made a comment after the it was the fourth goal. Sorry, not the third goal. It was the fourth goal. And he said, and I quote, "I wouldn't say the scoreline reflects the game."
Well,
I want to let that sink in. So he feels
it didn't. Wow.
He feels he said, "I wouldn't say the scoreline reflects the game." Now, a few people that I know on a few Facebook groups, and Matt, thank you very much for putting this in my direction, by the way. I had somebody send me the match stats for the game.
I was about to say, did we not have 18 shots and 70%
right.
of the possession or something?
I have the stats in front of me, so just bear with me for 1 sec. The possession, 71%, they had 29%. This is the overall possession of the game.
Yeah.
Shots. The total shots was 17 compared to 4. On target, 6 compared to zilch.
Mm-hmm.
Off target, 6 compared to 2. And blocked shots, 5 compared to 2. The overall passes of the game, we had 90% success rate with our passes. Palace had 74% success rate. And we won 4-0. And this idiot, who is earning a wage from BT and the BBC...
No, that's incorrect. Surely he pays them. Surely he's there as some kind of special programme or something.
I'm just astounded that he has a job as a pundit by saying, "I wouldn't say the scoreline reflects the game." And it just goes to show, fellow Chelsea supporters, it just goes to show, Jermaine Genus, you are a fucking turd.
Well, I tell you the 2 points that I'll make, right? I tell you the 2 points that I'll make in regards to Jermaine Genus, the king penis of punditry.
Thank you for saying his title.
Yes, I got it correct as well. I had to think about it. The 2 things that I'll say is, number 1, maybe he was going to reflect a bit more on his point, and maybe something happened in the game and he kind of got cut off and didn't get a chance to finish his point. Maybe the point that he was making with the fact that Palace actually defended really well to stop us creating twice the amount of chances and stop us creating twice the amount of clear-cut opportunities. And you could see what they was trying to do, and maybe 4-0 was a bit harsh on the effort that Crystal Palace put in. Maybe he was trying to make that point. Also, my second point that I'd like to make is, as much as I take the piss out of Jermaine Genius and don't think he's a very good pundit, his opinion is an awful lot more qualified than mine. He is still a Premier League footballer who was a talented footballer, and he is a million times a better pundit than I am. It's just that I'm not an ex-professional footballer, so it's unfair to make that comparison. So I can take the piss out of Jermaine Genius for being shit, in the same way that I can say that Joel Linton at Newcastle is an infinitely better footballer than I am, but he's nowhere near as fucking good as Timo Werner, so he's shit. It's the same principle. I'm just saying that I acknowledge that Jermaine Genius knows a lot more about the game of football than I do. It's just that compared to a pundit that's not as thick as two short planks and not so biased because he played for a Tottenham team that never beat Chelsea. He must have played against Chelsea 10, 11, 12, 13 times for Tottenham and never fucking beat us. And
his only claim to fame,
and he's fucking bitter.
His only claim to fame is the League Cup in 2008. Other than that, he's won fuck all.
Was he part of that team? Was he?
He was a part of that team, yes.
Well, that's disappointing because it's just stomped all over my point a little bit there. So thanks for that, Keith. But even so, that barely counts. Fucking Peter Cech punched it against Jonathan Woodgate's head. I'll still remember that game for Didier Drogba's brilliant free kick. I'm always positive about games. I remember that free kick. Anyway, fuck Jermaine Genius. Cunt. I prefer Jermaine Genius to Chris Sutton.
No, I knew he was
really
do. No, Chris Sutton would piss all over Jermaine Genius in a punditry fight. I'm sorry.
He'd beat him up in a fight. I'll grant you that. But no, I'm sorry, Chris Sutton. No, I prefer at least Jermaine Genius. Like, at least he has this sort of like endearing innocence about him, where he's stupid. It's a bit like Jamie Redknapp. You think, oh look, bless him, he's sweet, really, isn't he?
No.
Whereas Chris Sutton's born an arsehole. Don't
put Mr. Redknapp in the same category as Jermaine Genius. No, you cannot do that. Oh no. But as for Chris Sutton, he would wipe the floor with the king penis of punditry. I'm sorry.
I was born in the London Borough of Sutton. I should love Chris Sutton, and I don't because he's a tosser.
Shall we move on to more pressing matters?
Yes. Oh yeah. Fuck yeah. Modern day Chelsea. What's that?
Modern day Chelsea. Let's move on to it. The transfer deadline for international teams, for international clubs, I should say, is on Monday. And there are plenty of stories going around with certain players on the move. Not many stories of us buying players, but Warren, let's just sort of briefly touch the surface on a couple of stories that I found out this morning, and we'll talk about one particular transfer that happened during the week. ESPN, who I'm not a fan of in regards to finding stories from them, because for me, it's an American channel talking about English football. So
they're going to find out 20 minutes after us, even if they find anything out that's technically exclusive.
Exactly. So with all due respect to the Chelsea supporters across the pond, what the fuck does ESPN know? But they did a story. My view is backed up by this particular story that they're bringing out, is that Jorginho is going to be joining Arsenal before Monday on a season-long loan.
Well, why has Frank been playing him so much then?
Did Jorginho look like a guy that was going to be on the move yesterday?
No.
Thank you. Let's move on, because I don't want to give ESPN any more fucking airtime than they deserve.
Can I just say that as somebody who has a sports subscription on my TV service and I have ESPN on it, I do actually quite like the ESPN service, generally speaking, in terms of their sports coverage.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong.
In terms of their basketball and everything that they show, they've got some really good commentators and pundits on there. However, their knowledge is generally going to be more likely to be filtered down in second hand once it reaches the American media.
Don't get me wrong. ESPN, I've got a subscription for it. I'm a huge fan of their coverage, especially with the Major League Baseball, up the Atlanta Braves. However, when it comes to football, leave it the fuck alone. The other story I've got, and this is one that's catching on quite a lot,
Red Sox.
Bollocks to your Red Sox. Timmy Bakayoko is on his way to Napoli on loan. No obligation to buy. It's just a pure base loan for the season.
One season, yeah?
One season.
What's he got left on his contract now? 2 years?
I believe it's 2 years.
This season and next, isn't it?
Yes.
Because he was signed in 17 under Conte for
2017, yes.
Yeah, 5-year contract. Yeah, it makes sense.
So, a good move for him. Very good move for Napoli, in my opinion. And again, like I said before about Emerson, Bakayoko seems to be that sort of guy that would suit the Serie A game. And I know he had a loan at Milan and he wanted to go back to Milan, but obviously never materialised. So,
can I just say with regards to that, and we talk about Bakayoko being better suited to the Italian league and Emerson and Alonso, and if you look back at people like Clarence Seedorf and Andrea Pirlo and these midfielders that were world class at every level, and they've done it in the Champions League and the World Cup. So obviously it wasn't just because of the way that the Italian game was styled, but this is another reason that Jorginho is so class, because to grow up in a game where there's not a lot of high pressure, there's a lot of sitting off and waiting for the other team to make a mistake, and the Italian way of playing, which is a lot slower and stuff like that, and a lot more technical on the ball rather than running off of the ball and stuff like that. It just shows how well class Jorginho is to have adapted from a game that he's played for 25 years, to have adapted that so quickly. And I know that he was poor under Sarri, but that was bigger issues than Jorginho's talent or ability to adjust or whatever. But the longer he's playing in the Premier League, the better and better he's becoming. And it's a testament to have come from that style of play to this style of play, and to have made that transition to the point that other Premier League clubs are very interested in him because they see the class potential that's there. It shows that Jorginho is class, as I keep saying. Sorry, carry on. Yeah, Bakayoko.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, Bakayoko, I know his first season wasn't great. I think his hairstyle was probably, better than his overall performances.
He's not a bad player. I've seen him in quite a few more Champions League games and Europa League games for AC Milan over the seasons, but I've seen him, 6 or 7 times, and he's a very accomplished footballer.
He's not a bad player, and the reason why I say that is because you cannot be a shit player when you won the league over PSG for a Monaco side that, be it still had Bernardo Silva, Thomas Lemar, Kylian Mbappe, but he was the heart of that midfield.
Yeah, he was.
So you can't be a shit player. But overall, good luck to Timo Bakayoko, another player that came in the summer of 2017 under Antonio Conte, Antonio Rudiger. Now, it looks like he's been banned from the Chelsea squad, let alone, not attending.
Has he got COVID or something? I don't know what's going on there.
Well, I'm shocked actually, because one of the Chelsea supporters who I know very, very well gave actually a good point with Timo Werner and Kai Havertz coming in. Apparently, Antonio Rudiger was asked about these potential players,
we've mentioned it on the podcast before, what a huge role Antonio Rudiger had in particularly Werner and Havertz coming to Chelsea.
Yes. Now, something's obviously happened that we don't know, and we're not going to speculate because there's no point. But in regards to Antonio Rudiger, it looks like his future lies elsewhere. It is, in my opinion, it is a shame. I know that he did have a mistake in him.
I'm still disappointed. Yeah, I'm still disappointed. There was still a time under Conte, especially, not so much, and then at times under Sarri, not so much under Lampard, but there was times that he was our rock, and that he looked every bit there was times that he looked every bit the Marcel Desailly, big and pacey and good on the ball, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he's had some good times at the club, and I've always felt like Tony Rudiger's given 100%. So if what seems likely is that it is the end of his time at Chelsea, I just personally would like to thank him for his devotion to the club for the last 3 or 4 seasons, and I think that he has produced a lot of good performances, and he's always played with his heart, and he's always given 100%, and he's been vital in other players coming to the club. So whatever his fate may be at the club, I think he's been a good enough servant, and the very best of luck to him.
The 2 clubs that I've heard sort of this morning and last night that are looking to sign him are Tottenham, AC Milan, and there's, I think, either maybe 1 or 2 other Italian clubs that are also linked, but those 2 were the standout names.
Was there not initially talk of like West Ham or something?
Oh, that's all bollocks. No,
that would be now, I tell you what, for West Ham, that would be a luxury buy.
That would be a Harrods, but with all due respect, I think West Ham would probably have to take a loan out.
Yeah.
No
They'd
pun
have to
intended.
take a loan out to loan him.
Yes, they would have to take a loan out. No pun intended, to loan him. But I hope he doesn't go to Tottenham. Fucking hell, I really hope he doesn't go to Tottenham.
I think that Roman has proven before with his statement about because Cudicini went there on a free because he had his contract to run out with the club. But there was another occasion when Chelsea were going to sell a player to Tottenham, and I can't for the life of me think that the name just escapes me just for this moment. But Chelsea, it was
Carlton Cole.
It was Carlton Cole. Thank you very much. Well done, Keith. Well done. Thank you very much. The player who scored the first ever goal you saw live at Chelsea. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yes.
We was going to sell him to Tottenham, and there was an agreement in place, and he was on the way for a medical. And Roman was like, "No, we don't do business with Tottenham. You're mad." So. I don't think he'll go to Tottenham for that reason, because Roman knows how important it is. Frank and Jody know how important that is to not be selling them to not only our rivals, but to Tottenham as well. I don't see that happening. If he goes, it's the same with Jorginho. If Rudiger or Jorginho were to go, I cannot for the life of me imagine them going to a Premier League club. Same with Kante, the same with anybody that could potentially leave in the coming seasons. I cannot imagine them going to a Premier League club.
Well, one player that has gone to a Premier League club, which surprised quite a few, let's just say, was Ross Barkley going to Aston Villa on loan. Now, I'm assuming a certain JT might have had something to do with it, possibly. He might have been speaking to the powers that be at Villa about potentially getting a player in from his beloved Chelsea, but strange move.
I think that's absolutely how the deal was, definitely initially how the deal came about. I think that Frank would have been in contact with a lot of different managers and, a lot of different coaches and scouts and agents and stuff, and the club would have been as well. But I think absolutely John would have spoken to Frank privately and said, if you are going to be letting anybody go out on loan, then tell us first, and if we're interested, can you speak to the player and let them speak to us first, potentially? So I think that's definitely what may have happened. I think that Ross has made a decision that the Euros are next season, and he has to guarantee himself the opportunity at first team football. I think that Ross is one of them players that, Havertz and Kante and Jorginho are always going to be given the opportunity to prove themselves, whereas Ross, if he's given the opportunity to prove himself and he doesn't produce, he might not get another chance, whereas the other players will. So I think Ross has put himself in a position where he probably will get 10 games in a row, just based on him being a very, 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 very good player. I think he's well suited at Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa have got a really good sign as well. They've made really good signings. They've kept Grealish. So I think it's a really good move for him. So I think it works really well for Chelsea. I think it works really well for Ross. I think it works really well for Aston Villa. And I think it works really well for England. I think the surprise is that it was Ross and not Ruben. I think Frank has sat down and thought, who do I want as that squad backup player to potentially get into the first team? Do I want it to be Ross or do I want it to be Ruben? And I think he's made the choice and decided he wants it to be Ruben. I think when Ruben plays this season, even though he might occasionally be asked to sort of play wide and fill in certain games, I think if he starts in the Premier League, he'll be starting in central midfield, in that rolling behind, next to a Kante or a Jorginho or a Kovacic. So I think that's kind of the thinking behind that loan move, that it was either Ross or Ruben. Because one of them had to go, because they wasn't both going to stay and risk their place in the England squad.
Well, it'll be interesting if actually Ruben stays, because, as you say, how is he going to get?
I think if he goes, I don't imagine a situation where he goes and we don't bring somebody else in because of numbers. We've already shown that 2 players not fit, 1 player not signed, and 2 players injured leaves us with the Brighton performance and the West Brom performance in the first half and things like that. That's what it leaves us with when we're missing, half of the team. So I don't think we can afford to let, now Barkley's gone, I don't think we can afford to let Ruben go. Billy Gilmore's still the best part of a month from full fitness, so it's going to be 6, 7, 8 weeks until he's ready to start and finish a game, you would imagine, at least. So you're talking about it being pushing on for Christmas time until he's starting and finishing matches. And if he's going to be an important member of our squad, I think Ruben will get more chances now that Ross has gone. I think that's the way that Ruben sees it. They was probably almost both given the opportunity and probably had to decide between themselves who wanted to fight for their place and who wanted to go and get guaranteed football at a lesser club. And I think Ross has made that decision because he came from a lesser club in Everton. What do you think about it, Keith?
Well, I don't know.
Who would you have kept?
Out of Barkley and Loftus-Cheek?
Yeah.
At this moment in time, I probably would have kept Barkley. But I can understand for his point why he's gone, because I wouldn't see Barkley ahead of Mount. I wouldn't see Barkley ahead of Havertz. And Barkley in the sort of the central midfield role where Kante and Jorginho plays. Barkley
and Kovacic and Gilmore.
Sorry, and Mateo Kovacic. I don't think Barkley's good in that position. Not with the way we play. So
he certainly doesn't bring the best out of him.
No. So I can see why he's gone. For Aston Villa, it's probably one of the best signings they've made in the last 2 to 3 years. In regards to technical ability and what Barkley can produce for that kind of club. But overall, I don't think Barkley's been necessarily a good signing for Chelsea. I was expecting a lot more from him when we signed him. Overall, I was expecting him to score 10 to 15 goals a season with his ability, with his natural ability and with the way we would probably play to his strengths. But obviously that hasn't happened. But for me, Aston Villa have got themselves a fantastic player.
Agreed, yeah.
So
can I just make the point about that with the 10 to 15 goals? This is something that I was speaking about with a good friend of mine, like big football fan. Kieran, he's a Man United fan. I was speaking about this with him about a year ago, maybe even less, and he said that not last season but the season before, Paul Pogba was the highest goal scoring midfielder in the Premier League, right? I know it seems like I'm going off topic, but I will come round to it shortly. He said that Paul Pogba was the highest goal scoring midfielder in the Premier League that season, right? So I said, yeah, but that's not the achievement it used to be, because a left winger when Frank Lampard was playing was, Damien Duff, Sean Wright-Phillips, Ryan Giggs, David Beckham, whereas a winger now is Raheem Sterling or Timo Werner or, Eden Hazard or someone like that. So midfielders aren't scoring as many goals because there's more forwards now. So my point about that is that to expect a midfielder to score 10 to 15 goals a season, that's an astonishing amount of goals to score. If Havertz can score 10 to 15 goals a season, he is going to be world class, because midfielders don't get the goals like they used to anymore. Because there was a time when there was 2 and even sometimes 1 striker, and then the rest of the players were midfielders. Now there's 3 forwards and sometimes 1 or 2 other players that are considered forwards and not even central midfielders. So I totally appreciate what you're saying, Keith. I expected him to be a lot more consistent and to get more goals and to get more assists and to be involved in the play a lot more, especially going forward. I expected a lot more of that from him. But I think the days are gone when you can expect, players to get 10, 15 goals from central midfield, really. I mean, even Havertz playing in behind the strikers. I mean, he's considered a central midfielder, but he's just playing off of the forwards. For him to get 10, 15 goals a season would be astonishing. So for Ross Barkley to do it, you're talking about him being Frank Lampard. I never expected Ross Barkley to be Frank Lampard.
Interesting. I saw it the different way. I did see Ross Barkley as a potential Frank Lampard-esque player in regards to being in the right place at the right time, scoring goals. Because he had that in him at Everton, where he was in the right place at the right time, and he used to drive on with the ball against.
He still never scored that volume of goals, though. I don't think.
No, he didn't. But he had the potential because he was a young guy at Everton. He had the potential to do that, and I was delighted. I was delighted when we signed him. But obviously, he was injured for a long time, and I think his debut came on the last day of the season against Newcastle.
I was going to say he didn't come back until near the cup final.
No, he came back very, very late, so he didn't really have that, that sort of debut where he would shine, and it took a long time for him.
Yeah, it was never really his debut in the spotlight. And
I think since then, whether or not it's played into the hands, I don't know, but I do personally believe that the Barkley deal, for him it was obviously great because it was a step up in his career, but in my opinion, it wasn't, looking back, now, it probably wasn't the greatest of signings, but
it wasn't the best business.
I don't think it was the best business for us looking back, but I just want to end this on the point because, Ross Barkley is a good player and I do appreciate his efforts and talents.
Again, I wish him the very, very, very best.
Yes, absolutely. Good luck at Aston Villa.
I hope he comes back. I mean, I hope beyond more than anything that he comes back to Chelsea and is a brilliant player for Chelsea next season.
Well, he could come back a stronger player because he will be playing every week. He'll be playing for an Aston Villa side that I believe he will be playing to Barkley's strengths. And if Barkley goes to the Euros, then he's done an exceptionally great job and he hopefully will come back a bigger player. But Warren, just to conclude on this, do you believe that we will be signing anybody? Do you believe that there'll be more players outgoing rather than the ones that we've just mentioned? Because the clock is ticking.
Well, there's two. I guess that there's two very opposite and two very blunt answers to that. One, no. And the reasons for that are, I think that we have what we need for now. The other answer is yes, because it depends who leaves in the next, not just in the next coming days, but domestically, because I can imagine that people, we talked about Rudiger and Jorginho and Kante, even though that Kante's obviously not going anywhere. We don't think Jorginho is going anywhere. But if any of these players were to go anywhere, I've discussed that I think they would only go abroad. There's a lot of players that I think could go to places domestically. So I think that, even though I think Emerson would probably go abroad, I think that Victor Moses and Danny Drinkwater and one or two other fringe players could go to English teams. So there's not just a couple of days of the transfer window, there's still a week and a half, because obviously the domestic deadline is more than a week later. So yes, I can still see us bringing players in potentially, but I think it's more likely that a couple of players will leave and we'll keep our team as it is. If Rudiger leaves, I think that he will want to strengthen the numbers around that. So I can see whether or not it's a good sign, and I'm not going to go into that right now, but I can see Declan Rice coming in still. I still think that it appears that Frank's a big admirer of him. So I think Declan Rice may come in when Rudiger goes. But apart from that, I'm edging more on no. I think that a few players will go out on loan or whatever, but I think it would certainly appear that our business is done. Especially on yesterday's performance. I mean, let's just go back to that. What a fucking great win. 4-0, man. Oh, yeah.
Well, with your point on that, let's touch basis on the Champions League draw. Because as you say, 4-0, the performance, Let's hope we see that in
The
Europe.
clean sheet, the whole three.
Let's hope we see that in Europe. Let's go with the Champions League draw. 3 teams that I don't believe we've actually played before in Europe. These will be very, very interesting games in our group.
Yeah, I think that on the face of it, it appears a very good draw. I think that we must treat it with great trepidation, because I think Sevilla is always a tough place to go. A lot will depend on the places that are tough to go are less tough to go without the fans. So we must look at that from both sides. Stamford Bridge is a fortress, and Chelsea have one of the best records at home of any European team ever. I mean, we didn't even lose a home Europe. I know we didn't have as many campaigns as many of the other top teams, obviously, which is obviously a massive contributing factor to this, but we didn't lose a European game until we lost against Lazio in the Champions League 2-1 in the second group stage. For those of you that don't remember, the Champions League reformatted in the late 90s, and there was 2 group stages, and then it was the quarterfinals, and they replaced the second group stage with the round of 16, the second round now, and we lost 2-1, and so we've got an amazing home record. So obviously the main contributing factor to that is the Chelsea fans. So we're going to be missing out on our home fortress, so to speak, as well. So that's another reason that I think that we have to look at we would look at Sevilla, Krasnodar and Rennes and think, right, 9 home points. We need to win an away game when we go through. I don't think that we can necessarily bank on that like we used to, because we haven't got the fans. So Sevilla are a very good side. I think it'll be a real test for us tactically to see where we are, and technically to see how we come up against, like Spanish opposition and that tiki-taka type football, and a team that's been together a lot and just wins European trophies for fun. Krasnodar will be difficult because it will be tricky weather conditions, and it's a long journey, and there's been a lot of games to fit in, and then all of a sudden we've got like a 1,000,000-mile journey to throw in there in the freezing cold and everything. So that's by no means a banker at all, and I think anybody that thinks that that's a banker needs to rethink their ideas. Rennes, the French league, is improving. I think Rennes, home and away, is our best chance of 6 points, not even Krasnodar. I tell you what, if we could beat Sevilla at home, Krasnodar at home, Rennes home and away, get a point at Krasnodar, then you're looking at us being through. So I think Krasnodar away is actually our second hardest away game. But on the whole, bearing in mind it could have been PSG and RB Leipzig and whoever else Man United have got, then yeah, obviously I'm very pleased with the draw. But I think we have to be realistic about it. I think we have to be realistic about where we are at as well. We look at that group and we think that there's times gone by that not only have we been champions of Europe, but there's been times that we was much better than the season that we were champions of Europe. I don't think we can look at that group as if we're that team.
No.
Because we're not. You've got to remember that Sevilla are looking at that and they're thinking, of all the English teams, we could have got Man City or Liverpool or someone like that, or blah, blah, and we haven't. We've got Chelsea. So it's the same as us saying, right, we've got Sevilla, not, I was going to say Barcelona, but they're proper shit. But you know what I mean? Like, we've got Sevilla, we haven't got Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, Barcelona. So Sevilla might be looking at us the same way. And Rennes might be looking at us the same way as well. So we have to approach this realistically. I'm very pleased with the draw. Ecstatic, if I'm truth be told. But I'm very, very realistic about it. Very positive, but I'm very realistic about it. How did you think, Keith? Obviously you've done the live stream. Thank you very much everyone for tuning in on YouTube. Nearly 100 live views on that. So thank you very much everyone for that. But what did you think, Keith, when the names come out the hat, so to speak?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the live stream. Here at the Blue Day podcast, we did do a live stream of the Champions League draw. Audio aside, I thought was very good. Some people did complain about it, but we did it on YouTube and Facebook.
We are going to improve that in the future. It was a little bit last minute. We are going to improve
the one on YouTube. I apologise for. There was a bit of a technical issue on my front, but the one on Facebook was a lot better. So thank you for those that joined me with the Champions League draw via Facebook. Thank you for that. And if you did join us on the Blue Day podcast for the Champions League draw, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our Facebook page. And in fact, subscribe on iTunes on the Blue Day podcast. But when you're talking about the Champions League draw, I do agree with you to a point whereby we're not the Chelsea side from years gone by. We were, say, pot 1 in the group or even pot 2. And
we'd be looking at this group in between 2005 and 2011. We'd be looking at that group and we'd be saying this is our chance to get 18 points in a group for the first time.
Yes. So I agree with you on that point about we should not take this lightly because, as you say, I think Seville will probably look at the draw and say, yeah, we could get maximum points. But so for the benefit of putting a fine point on it, I just want to tell you at the moment where the teams are in the table and their form, because I do think that is significant.
When is our opening game for the Champions League?
Our opening game, I believe, is on the 20th or the 21st of October. So we've got Southampton at home the game before, and then it's a Champions League.
Yeah.
But Seville at the moment, they've only played 2 games and they've won 2.
Yeah.
Right, and we know what Seville are going to be like because they are no mugs. They did win the Europa League. They did win the Europa League.
I think it'd be interesting to see the betting odds to see who's favourite to win the group out of Sevilla and Chelsea.
Krasnodar are 7th in the Russian league at the moment. They've won 4 games out of 9. So if you look at it from that point, they've only lost 2. But they've only lost 2 out of 9 games, if you look at it like that. And the last one, Rennes, which I've just looked on the stats now and I was a bit surprised. They're top of the French league at the moment, and they haven't lost a game yet, which is interesting.
No, but you've got to potentially... Now, I haven't caught too much of the French league at the beginning of the season. There's been so much going on that I've been watching a lot of German and Italian football, as well as the English Premier League, obviously, and the Carabao Cup and, the Championship and everything. But it'd be interesting to see who they've played, because this is the thing with the French league, that from 10th to bottom, they're complete horseshit. And then from 10th to 6th, they're kind of alright. They're kind of, like the teams that would be fighting off relegation every season in the Premier League. And then from 6th to 3rd, there's some decent enough teams. There's some teams that might be, mid to lower of the top half of the Premier League. Shit teams like Tottenham and Arsenal. And then you've got a couple of decent teams at the top. So Rennes might have played 3 teams that would struggle to stay in the Championship this season.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But my overall sort of comments on that would be, you can only beat what's in front of you.
Correct.
And, I'm not saying that
we struggled against Brighton and West Brom at the end of the day. So
yes, and if you look at the draw that we had last year, with Valencia and Ajax and Lille,
that was tougher.
Yes, I agree. Although as I'm with you, I'm delighted that we've got them teams, but we shouldn't necessarily think it's 18 points. But I do expect us to perform, especially with the players that we've got. I expect us to do well against those sides.
Yeah, I think especially because the additions that we've made are... I mean, I know that Ben Chilwell doesn't necessarily have loads of Champions League experience or anything, but Mendy and Werner and Havertz and Silva are all top experienced. Like Mendy, not necessarily top experienced, but like they're all experienced European campaigners as well. So I think that even without them necessarily, even though they are like better players than what we had last season, even without them being better players, just their experience will make us a better European outfit anyway. So
I agree. So that'll be interesting.
Werner and Havertz have been playing European or Champions League football for a couple of seasons now. I mean, Havertz for a couple of seasons, Werner for 3 or 4.
Yes. So it'll be interesting when the Champions League commences, how we get on and, how the team will function with league and European competition. So good luck to the team for the Champions League this season. Warren, it's been a long morning. The weather is still shit, but let's end on a positive.
Well, let's end on an unbelievable positive and say that I'm in the north of England and I can actually see sunshine. I'm not joking. I'm going to take a picture on WhatsApp it to you so you know that I'm not lying.
Okay.
Right. Bear with me. I'm going to have to go to my window because this is unbelievable. This.
Well, while you're doing that, we've just received an email this morning on the bluedaypodcast@gmail.com from a guy who's been in touch before by the name of Aaron. He's contacted us saying, "Hi Keith and Warren, hope you're both doing good. Thanks for reading out my email on the last episode. It was good to hear your opinions on my rant. Great result yesterday. Always nice to win 4-0 when you're not at your best, especially in a London derby. But I have a question for you both, a question that I feel is always a good debate. What are your both all-time best and favourite Chelsea 11? But only players that have been around since you've supported the club." Now, Aaron, thank you very much for your list.
Yeah.
Warren, we're not going to go on it today because I want to actually talk about this next week on next week's episode because I think it's going to take a week.
I was going to say I'm going to need a little bit of time on that one. That's a ponder of that.
Yes, Aaron. Again, thank you for your email. It is a great debate. It is a great topic to discuss.
I think maybe what we could do is to sort of expand on that and to give it a little bit more airtime next week. Maybe what me and Keith can do in the upcoming week is take a bit of what Aaron said there. Only since we've been alive. So I was born in 1987, and Keith was born in 1962. No, I'm joking. When was you born, Keith?
1990.
1990. So we'd have a very similar outtake. Maybe what we could do is we could do our favourite players, so not necessarily the best or, the best free flowing or whatever. Maybe we could do like the best and then we could do like all time 11 and then we could do the greatest. We'll figure something out. That's a really good one, Aaron. I'll tell you what, me and Keith are going to figure something out during the week and then during the international week next week we're going to bring that up. Did you say that Aaron had put his all time 11?
He has, but I would like to
share that. We won't share that today.
We're not going to share that today. We will share that next week because I want to. I'd like to compare that with mine. I'd like to compare that with yours.
Absolutely. I'd like to compare that with the other viewers as well. So maybe if other viewers can get in touch at the bluedaypodcast@gmail.com or the YouTube channel or Facebook or Instagram. That's all the Blue Day Podcast. Find us on there, like and subscribe. Maybe if you could put in your favourite 11 since you've been alive, because there's going to be a lot of viewers of different ages and stuff like that. So maybe if you guys stick to the context of Aaron's email and say your favourite 11 since you've been alive, and then we can read them out next week during the international break when we're going to be needing content from you guys. So yeah, brilliant. Yeah, great idea, Aaron. Thanks so much for that.
Brilliant. Well, here at the Blue Day Podcast, we are elated with joy. Warren, I'm ecstatic.
I have a smile on my face because I know what you're going to say and I have a smile on my face, Keith.
Well, we're going to end this episode on a huge announcement, and it's something that I'm very proud that we have accomplished quite early on this podcast journey.
Yeah.
Now, I said at the very beginning that I want to get guests on the show that can give their memories of Chelsea, and we talk all things Chelsea. And I am delighted, absolutely delighted to announce, Warren and fellow Chelsea supporters, that in the next couple of weeks, we have the chairman and director of the Chelsea pitch owners, Mr. Chris Izzett, on the show to talk about the Chelsea pitch owners and to talk about his love for Chelsea. Warren, I'm delighted that we've managed to get this sorted, and I'm very much looking forward to having him on the show.
Oh, wow. I mean, obviously me and Keith have been talking about this and been in contact with Mr. Chris Izzett for many, many weeks now, and I know it may seem a little bit silly to say, but it's almost a dream come true to get somebody of his stature so early. I mean, for those of you that don't know about the Chelsea Pitch Owners Club and what it represents and what it stands for, what it means, where it comes from, it's all going to be explained on the upcoming podcast with him, further details to be announced exactly when we're going to be putting that broadcast out and stuff. but like Keith said, it will be in the coming weeks. But yeah, it's so exciting. I think that so many people are going to learn so much about the history and heritage and the passion of Chelsea and where it comes from, and why, when we say that we want to hear from supporters that were fans in the 60s, 70s and 80s particularly, and even beyond that and since and everything, of course, but particularly that era, is because of things like the Chelsea Pitch Owners Club, which is obviously one of the most important chapters in Chelsea's history. And I think it's very, very important for those of you that don't know about it, or don't know everything about it, or maybe just need an update on it, or, you know, you might know everything about it and just need a little refresher because you haven't thought about it for a while. You know, please tune in for that, because it's going to be really, really good. Chris he's a really, really nice guy, and he's looking to not only promote the Chelsea Pitch Owners Club and what they do and everything, he's really keen to, you know, support our channel. He said that himself, that he's listened to the podcast and he supports everything that we're saying and what we're trying to accomplish. So, you know, it's so exciting. Honestly, I think he's gonna enlighten so many people potentially, and potentially all of our listeners. He may enlighten you to an aspect of Chelsea that you didn't know about before, and you may find your love and your passion and your sort of camaraderie towards the club massively improve after listening to him, because what he's going to have to say is one of the most, like I say, it's one of the most important chapters in the history of Chelsea Football Club, up there with being created, up there with Ken Bates, up there with our first league title in 1955, up there with Roman taking over the club. The Chelsea Pitch Owners Club is as, if not more important than all of those things. We cannot exist without the Chelsea Pitch Owners Club. So if you don't know about it, and even if you do, tune in, because it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Completely 100% agree with what you've just said. If it wasn't for the Chelsea Pitch Owners, Chelsea Football Club would be a very, very different entity.
It could not exist anywhere near to the capacity that it does these days. I don't want to. My lips are trembling with wanting to say, and I'm not. I'm gonna reserve that right to Chris Izzet, and quite rightly so. But yeah, please tune in to hear about what the Chelsea Pitch Owners Club done, because it will be emotional.
So the Chelsea Pitch Owners, they will be on the podcast coming up very, very soon. But Warren, let's end it on a positive. Let's get Harry J and the All-Stars on to end the show. And fellow Chelsea supporters, keep the blue flag flying. Enjoy the international break. And we will be back very, very soon. Carefree.